That beautiful symbol on your skin is actually a doorway, and something is watching you through it. The moment the needle broke your flesh and your blood mixed with that symbol, you thought you marked your skin, but in truth, you were marked. The blood that spilled during your tattoo was never yours alone. Every line etched into your body echoes in the spiritual realm. Every symbol you wear speaks a name into the void. And sometimes, something answers. You didn't get a tattoo, you were branded. And now you have to know what you've really allowed in. The practice of inscribing marks onto the human body is far older than any modern culture remembers. Beneath the surface of contemporary fashion or personal expression lies an ancient spiritual language that once belonged only to shamans, initiates, and divine messengers. In the forgotten epochs of early civilization, tattoos were not decorations, they were covenants, scripts, and signs of transformation. The body, considered a sacred vessel, was treated as a living scroll upon which divine or infernal energies could be summoned, sealed, or celebrated. In those ancient times, nothing was carved into the skin without cosmic intention. One of the oldest known records of ritual tattooing dates back to over 5,000 years ago, as seen in the preserved remains of the Tyrolean Iceman, whose skin bore distinct markings aligned with meridians used in Chinese acupuncture. This alone implies that tattoos were used not for vanity, but to interact with the energy channels of the body. The Egyptians tattooed priestesses of Neith and Hathor with sacred patterns on their abdomens, believing these marks would activate divine energies during childbirth and ritual ceremony. In Polynesia, intricate tattoos known as ta moko or pea were not simply cultural identifiers, they were spiritual maps that reflected the individual's mana or life force and were believed to be received from the gods through trance and vision. The ancient Sumerians viewed the human body as a canvas upon which divine codes could be embedded. Their priests believed that symbols etched into the skin could act as conduits for transmitting divine frequencies from the celestial realms into the physical plane. Similarly, in Chaldean mysticism, specific symbols were tattooed on the back of the neck and spine, those sacred points through which the soul travels during astral ascent or descent. These marks were thought to help the soul navigate between planes after death. The Book of the Veiled Ones, an esoteric Coptic scroll preserved secretly in Karnak and never released into public scripture, offers this line in its 13th fragment. The skin is a scroll upon which the spirit writes. Touch it with ink, and the soul will remember. This mysterious verse suggests that tattooing was once used to awaken dormant memory within the soul, a sacred form of recall meant to guide the initiate back to truth. Tattoos were not just external symbols, they served as internal triggers to forgotten wisdom. Some schools of Hermetic and Gnostic tradition believed that the skin carried layers of forgotten divine writing, and tattooing these sacred symbols would reignite the flesh text and reawaken the divine logos buried under karmic forgetfulness. But not all traditions viewed the practice with reverence. The Mosaic laws in the Hebrew Torah contain a stark warning in Leviticus 19:28. Do not cut your bodies for the dead or put tattoo marks on yourselves. I am the Lord. This commandment has been interpreted by mystical Jewish sages not simply as a moral prohibition, but as a spiritual protection. These sages believed that tattooing opened the body to forces that the uninitiated could not control. The body, being a sacred vessel, should not be marked by those without divine authority or clarity of purpose. In this light, uninitiated tattooing could invite spiritual distortion or draw attention from astral forces who recognize symbolic doorways inscribed on human flesh. The auric is a real structured layer of spiritual substance that reflects a person's emotional state, spiritual alignment, and karmic imprints. The aura functions like an electromagnetic cloak that communicates with higher realms and protects the individual from intrusive forces. When a tattoo is placed on the body, it does not merely remain on the surface. It penetrates through the energetic anatomy and leaves an imprint on the vibrational body. Each tattoo, regardless of its intention or design, acts as a vibrational seal. This seal, whether consciously chosen or not, becomes part of the individual's energetic signature. When a needle penetrates the skin and ink is deposited into the dermal layer, It is not just flesh that is affected. The subtle energy currents flowing through the chakras of the body are also influenced. A symbol placed upon the skin may either harmonize with the body's energy or distort its natural rhythm, depending on the geometry of the symbol and the consciousness with which it was embedded. When a symbol of violence, confusion, or mockery is tattooed onto the body without spiritual preparation, it may interfere with the body's subtle architecture. Symbols carry vibration. A geometric form, a word, or even a cartoon carries a frequency that communicates with the unconscious mind and with the energy field. When placed permanently on the skin, that frequency becomes embedded in the biofield. It continually broadcasts a message to the spiritual realms, whether the wearer is aware of it or not. If the symbol is unclean in meaning, misaligned in structure, or born of shadowy intent, it can open the auric field to emotional instability, spiritual fatigue, or even psychic attack. When a person undergoes strong emotional experiences, such as grief, rage, or heartbreak, the aura shifts in color, density, and resonance. A tattoo, being a permanent addition to this dynamic field, can either stabilize or destabilize these energetic fluctuations. In many cases, people who experience sudden personality changes, chronic fatigue, or spiritual dullness after receiving a tattoo are unknowingly dealing with auric interference. The tattoo may be acting as a symbol that disrupts the energy flow between chakras or weakens the boundary between the physical and astral body. One must also consider the placement of the tattoo. Different parts of the body hold different energetic significance. The spine, for instance, serves as the highway for the Kundalini current, which rises from the base of the spine to the crown of the head. A tattoo placed along this channel must be chosen with extreme care, as it can either assist the awakening of spiritual fire or block its flow entirely. The chest and heart area correspond to the heart chakra, the seat of divine love and soul energy. A symbol inked in this area will either amplify compassion and spiritual openness or harden the emotional field, depending on its meaning and resonance. Even tattoos on the hands or feet, which correspond to specific reflex points and energy exits, can influence one's grounding, sense of stability, or ability to receive spiritual energy from the earth and sky. This sacred relationship between symbol and energy is echoed in the mysterious line from the lost Codex of Balthazar, an ancient esoteric text known only to a few mystics of the Near East. The verse warns, "Place not the sign upon thy vessel unless thou hast purified thy waters, for ink holds intention beyond the grave." The waters in this verse symbolize the emotional and spiritual currents within the body. The ink, acting as a conductor of intent, retains the frequency with which it was embedded. If a tattoo is created during a time of emotional instability, spiritual confusion, or worldly intoxication, the auric field absorbs that energy and locks it in. This embedded vibration can follow the soul even beyond death, affecting the astral imprint carried into the next incarnation. Some traditions, particularly within West African Vodun and the shadow practices of the Caribbean, have used tattoos to bind spirits to the body. Specific symbols are etched into the skin to anchor a spirit, either a guardian, ancestor, or even a demonic force, so that the person may gain power, protection, or insight. However, these pacts are not without price. Once a spirit is anchored, it shares space within the person's energy body. If the spirit is malevolent or becomes dissatisfied, it may feed on the host's vitality, disturb sleep, or influence thought and behavior. Such practices are not myths. They are documented in closed oral traditions and preserved in secret grimoires, passed only between initiated lineages. The Book of Enoch, a text excluded from most canonical scripture but preserved in fragments among Ethiopian and Aramaic mystics, contains a chilling reference to how beings from the lower realms interact with human flesh. In one of its hidden fragments, rarely revealed even to scholars, there is this passage: "When the blood is drawn in ritual and the mark sealed in pain, the unseen watches and some descend." This verse echoes the ancient belief that pain, blood, and symbolism together form a magnetic ritual, a calling card to spirits who seek a host in the material world. The act of tattooing, when unconscious or charged with negative emotion, may emit a vibrational frequency that functions like a spiritual flare. Certain entities are drawn to that frequency. They see the mark, feel the resonance, and identify the bearer as one open to communication or even influence. The more chaotic or occult the symbol, the stronger the signal becomes. There are documented cases in spiritual healing and exorcism traditions where tattoos were identified as the source of persistent spiritual interference. In these instances, individuals experienced nightmares, chronic fatigue, intrusive thoughts, or a sudden change in personality after receiving a tattoo. Upon deeper spiritual diagnosis, it was found that the symbol had created a subtle opening in the auric field. This opening allowed non-human intelligences to influence the person's thoughts or emotional state. The Akashic field does not judge, it records. Every tattoo that has ever been placed upon human skin is stored in this field along with the emotion, intention, and spiritual context in which it was created. When a soul undergoes review between incarnations, these imprints are taken into consideration. Some souls have chosen to return with similar tattoos in the next life, spiritual echoes of a vow or unresolved identity from a previous incarnation. Others return with aversions, birthmarks, or skin conditions that correspond energetically to past life tattoos that were misused or placed during periods of spiritual darkness. When a person regrets a tattoo or feels a persistent spiritual heaviness after receiving one, this often signals that the symbol has fallen out of alignment with the soul's current vibration. Just as a melody can become discordant when played in the wrong key, a tattoo may feel out of place when the person grows beyond the consciousness that chose it. Removal, although helpful on the surface, does not erase the energetic imprint. The symbol, once embedded in the etheric body, must be cleansed through spiritual work. Rituals of purification, prayer, and conscious release are often required to dissolve the bond between symbol and spirit. In some ancient traditions, this process was done through sacred fire ceremonies, where the soul offered the tattoo to the divine in exchange for realignment. There are also consequences to altering or covering tattoos. When a symbol is layered with another design, the original vibration often remains beneath the surface. The new symbol interacts with the old, creating a merged energy field that can become confusing or unstable. This layered resonance may lead to emotional inconsistency, spiritual fatigue, or even psychological unrest. The skin, being a sensitive interface between spirit and world, records this confusion and reflects it in subtle ways. Therefore, before any cover-up or transformation, it is essential to perform a release ritual, one that honors the old energy, thanks it, and consciously dissolves its hold. In rare cases, tattoos may awaken dormant karmic contracts. A symbol chosen casually may mirror a mark once worn in a past life, thereby reactivating energies associated with that identity. Some people have reported spontaneous memories, dreams, or personality shifts after receiving a tattoo that unknowingly matched a sacred or cursed mark from a previous incarnation. In such cases, the tattoo serves as a trigger, a spiritual activation that brings old energy to the surface for resolution or repetition. If the soul is ready, this activation becomes a path to healing. If the soul is unaware, it may lead to cycles of confusion or emotional stagnation. One of the most mysterious verses related to this concept comes from the Atlantean oracle text, recovered in fragmented form from the submerged temple of Poseidon. The verse states, "The soul shall wear the skin of memory, and the flesh the stains of choice. Each line inked shall echo in the hall of mirrors." This ancient wisdom teaches that the flesh, though temporal, becomes the canvas of memory. What is chosen, marked, and sealed in the flesh resonates far beyond the moment. It echoes in the hall of mirrors, which in Atlantean lore represents the domain of soul reflection, where every life is reviewed and all choices are revealed in perfect clarity. In truth, the spiritual consequences of tattooing are neither inherently good nor evil. They depend entirely on awareness, intention, and resonance. When a tattoo is created in alignment with the soul's path, it becomes a sacred ally. When it is formed from ignorance, rebellion, or confusion, it becomes an echo of pain carried silently beneath the skin. The act itself carries no moral weight, but it is never neutral. Every mark is a message, every symbol is a seed, every tattoo is a choice that becomes part of the soul's unfolding story. The journey of ink upon flesh is, therefore, a sacred one. It is a journey that must be approached with reverence, discernment, and wisdom. Please share this video with your beloved ones.